if people saw the circus they called a debate last night. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that you could vote for because you are proud of? Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that wasn't a petty partisan, somebody who actually has a doctorate, somebody who is a small business owner and a university professor? Wouldn't you rather like to be voting for somebody than voting against somebody? Well, here you go. She's with us. Your next President of the United States, Dr. Jo Jorgensen.
Thank you so much for coming out on not the sunniest day. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who said, well, I already saw you in Madison, thanks for coming out again. And I guess you'll have my speech memorized quicker than I will. So I want to start off by telling you about my grandmother, because she's the one who gave me the love I have of my country. She instilled in me American values because she was an immigrant. And she said in the old country, it didn't matter how hard you worked. It didn't matter if you took a second or third job, that the government took the extra away so everybody would be the same. Now, listening to her, it might sound like she was from, I don't know, Russia, Soviet Union, an Eastern Bloc country. Actually, she was from Denmark. And unfortunately, we're headed more towards Denmark every day. And I, unlike the politicians in Washington, think that you know best what you need for your life. And that's why I'm asking for your vote for President of the United States. As your president, I will get government out of the way so my grandmother's vision of the American dream can be a reality for us all. Our current government is too big, too bossy, too nosy, too intrusive. And besides, what gives them the right? We need to put the decision-making power back into your hands, because you can spend your money better than any special interest, lobbyist, or bureaucrat in Washington could. Now, Americans would never budget $80 billion each year to keep families apart from their loved ones. But that's exactly the end result of what our government does with its prison system. We cannot claim to be the land of the free when we lead the world in incarcerations. We have 5% of the world's population, but house 20% of its prisoners. One of the biggest factors that's led to a quadrupling of the prison population since 1980 is the racist and destructive war on drugs. In particular, mandatory minimums have taken discretion out of the hands of judges and instead force mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters to be incarcerated for 10, 20 years, sometimes even a lifetime, for a supposed crime that has no victim. All we have to do is take a step back to the Prohibition era to see the parallels. Despite realizing how poorly alcohol prohibition went, we've created a carbon copy. Drug kingpins have replaced mob bosses, and drug dens have replaced speakeasies. When was the last time you heard of a liquor store owner going up and down the halls of a high school trying to push gin on high school students? When's the last time you heard of a vodka addict breaking into houses in order to support a vodka habit? Or when's the last time you heard of two liquor store owners having a shootout for the best corner? What we have now is not a drug problem. What we have is a prohibition problem. Woo! There should be no law to prevent you from owning an object, whether it's a gun to protect yourself or drugs for whatever reason you wish. If there is no victim, there is no crime. As your president, I will federally decriminalize all drugs and encourage states to treat it as a health issue, not a criminal issue. We should allow the medical community to treat substance abusers in a way that salvages lives, not throwing them away. Accordingly, I will pardon anyone convicted at the federal level of any victimless crime. This is just one step towards ending the over-incarceration of people of color and letting consensual adult activities become safer and less stigmatized. In addition to overcrowding our federal prisons, the war on drugs has negatively affected communities and the interactions that many people have with police. The drug war has single-handedly created gangs that police themselves, often through violence. Consequently, the federal government has created a police state, including the Drug Enforcement Administration, which receives $3 billion of our tax dollars annually. They have repeatedly raided medical marijuana clinics in states where medical marijuana is completely legal. And long gone is a friendly local patrol officer who knows everyone in the neighborhood by name. Instead, the federal government has imported nameless, faceless SWAT teams that sometimes make Americans feel like enemy combatants in their own street. As your president, I will defund the federal involvement in policing, including the DEA and DHS. That means ending the supplying of surplus military equipment like tanks and tear gas to over 8,000 federal, state, and local police forces. I will end no-knock raids, which too often end up killing innocent bystanders like Breonna Taylor. And as Libertarian Congressman Justin Amash has pointed out, when police do misbehave, it is nearly impossible to take legal action against police because of an arcane doctrine known as qualified immunity, which states that victims can only successfully sue an officer if a clear civil rights violation has already been established in a prior case. When I am president, I will end qualified immunity so that police are held to the same standard as everyone else. While millions of Americans have suffered from government's war on drugs, almost every American has suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic in some way. South Korea confirmed its first coronavirus case within a day of our first case and quickly jumped ahead in testing, containing the spread. As infections in the U.S. skyrocketed, South Korea nearly eradicated COVID-19, and they did so without any lockdowns. A testing initiative led by Bill Gates was the first to roll out tests in the U.S. that could be conducted outside of a hospital. Over the course of 10 weeks, they processed 20,000 tests, but on May 12th, the FDA stopped them from further testing and said they needed, quote unquote, further assessment. This is just one example of how the FDA has worsened the COVID-19 crisis and made it extremely difficult for anyone to get tested. Currently, only those companies with enough money and resources can even get FDA approval, and once they do, they weaponize their patents to hold a monopoly. It costs about $1 billion to bring a drug to market, and thanks to the FDA, it's about a 10-year process. Meanwhile, it's the patients who suffer, desperately waiting for drugs that just might save their lives. New medicines and procedures should get to patients as quickly and safely as possible. When I am your president, I will get rid of the efficacy requirement of the FDA, if not the FDA entirely. The FDA is not the only issue with the American healthcare system. Let's be honest, it's not working for anyone, and my heart breaks for the millions of Americans who have left behind, families who have been bankrupted. For decades, the politicians in Washington have said the fault lies in our free market system. Therefore, we need a single-payer system. Well, I have some news for them. We haven't had anything close to a free market in nearly a century, and the alternative to our current big government failure isn't an even bigger government failure. Now, when politicians say we need Medicare for all, what I'm hearing them say is we need VA hospital for all. This top-down monopoly isn't acceptable for anyone, let alone those who are willing to risk their lives for our country. We cannot wait for government bureaucrats to decide who lives and who dies. We have to put control back into the hands of people, back into the hands of the patient. As I see it, the problem with the American healthcare system is that our insurance isn't really insurance at all. In any other industry, insurance only covers unexpected costs. Therefore, costs are held relatively low. So, for instance, what if your car insurance paid for gas, oil, and car washes? First of all, you would have absolutely no reason to shop around for the lowest gas prices. In fact, you might even go to the nicest gas station where they serve you free coffee, because what do you care? You just whip out your little $5 copay. It doesn't matter if you go to the most expensive gas station or the cheapest one. Consequently, gas stations have absolutely no reason to compete on price. In fact, they could raise prices without you even knowing it, because they would simply pass it along to the car insurance companies. And the following year, your car insurance company would increase your premium. This is exactly what's going on in our healthcare system. Patients have absolutely no reason to shop around for the best price. Consequently, healthcare providers have no reason to compete on price. Insurance companies can charge whatever they want without any accountability, and we're the ones left footing the bill. Now, the two best systems of free market systems would be, or at least close to a free market system, would be that in Singapore and the state of Indiana. In Singapore, prices are 1/3 of what they are here per patient, and a doctor's visit is only $10. That's less than our copay. And the state of Indiana has increased generic drug use from 10% to 93%. I think the VA healthcare should be transformed to a system similar to the state of Indiana, in which we put dollars into the pockets of veterans and allow them to decide how and where and when to use them. Now, the government letdown of our soldiers doesn't begin with healthcare. It starts from the day they enlist. Many who are deployed weren't even born when the war on terror began. The U.S. spends more on military than the next 7 countries combined. We are in nearly 150 countries around the globe. And what do we have to show for it? In the last 20 years alone, over 500,000 people have died in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq, including 250,000 civilians. Those are parents, siblings, and children who will never return home. In every election, candidates promise peace, but they only deliver more war. If I'm elected president, my first official act will be to bring the troops home. I want to turn America into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral. Our military must be trained to defend our shores, but we have to stop meddling around the world and make peace with our world neighbors. The military budget is far from the only example of how government has misdirected our economy. The IRS taxes Americans at every turn, and the tax system is so complicated that only those who can afford a tax accountant or personal lawyer can even navigate the code. And that same IRS that taxes us to death probes into every personal financial decision we make, deciding how much we owe. Meanwhile, the government itself accumulates more debt. Now, half the people in Washington say we need to increase military spending. The other half say we need to increase domestic spending. So what's our bipartisan compromise? They simply increase all spending. As your president, my veto pen is going to need a lot of extra ink. Runaway spending is also made possible by the Federal Reserve. When the federal government isn't able to raise taxes, it simply prints more money. Without any backing, since the Fed was created over a century ago, the American dollar has lost 96% of its value. We should reduce regulations to allow cryptocurrency and any other form of currency to enter the market. As your president, I will first audit and then end the Federal Reserve. I I will eliminate the IRS and work with Congress towards eliminating the federal income tax altogether. It's time to move money out of the government sector and back to the people who earned it. Politicians and bureaucrats don't know what you need. You do. When it comes to cutting spending, we cannot take any solutions off the table. I would encourage baseline budgeting. So instead of assuming an increase every year, we start at zero and only add in what's vital. It's time for the government to balance its checkbook the same way American families do. Now, given the challenges we face as a country, it's easy to feel like the change I'm talking about just can't happen. But I believe it can because I believe in you. I believe in the individuals who make up this great country. I see America through my grandmother's eyes, a place where the rights of the individual are greater than the power of government, a place where liberty means minimum government and maximum freedom, a place where the American dream isn't a dream at all, it's real and it's right there in front of you because you made it happen. As I ask for your vote this November, it's not because I'm asking you to cast a vote for me. Instead, I think you should vote for you. You know best how to spend your money. You know best how to prioritize your family needs. You know best what's best for you. Thank you so much.